Item 9, so the opportunity to join the City's Race to Zero Climate Initiative and sign the Aotearoa SDG Declaration. Welcome, Tony and Kerry. You certainly could. I'll get the mayor to introduce.
Yeah, sorry. Because this was an unusual conduit to the council table, I just wondered if I could introduce the paper, because I was the one that asked for it to be put on the agenda of this committee, Sustainability and Community Resilience, given the topics. But there are two issues for consideration today. One's joining the City's Race to Zero initiative, and that was as a result of an invitation from Auckland Mayor Phil Goff to join the City's Race to Zero Climate Initiative. Now, Auckland is part of the C40 group, and they have an ambition to get 1,000 cities to sign up to the Race to Zero by the time of COP26. So it's an important part of a global campaign to support our governments as they go to Glasgow to reconsider their commitments and up their commitments in relation to the Paris Accord. So it is an important initiative in that regard. People often ask, what is the point of doing that? And in a way, that was the question I asked Bridget about the significance of cities signing up to what is a government initiative, essentially government to government. And I think it is really to draw attention to what we are doing as individual cities to contribute to the reduction of emissions, and that's to give strength to our governments as they travel to Glasgow. We need to include one commitment, and I think one of the shortcomings of the paper is that it doesn't identify that there are a number of commitments that we could have chosen, and there are a number of activities that are going on that we've signed up to that we could have used as the example. And I think that in defining the particular list of actions that cities can commit to, they looked at sort of generic statements and then stretch targets, so they were part of a single one. So the one that we've chosen for this, and I think the report probably should note that we have committed to a range of areas and responding to the call for action in a number of areas like food and all of those other issues. So that should go into the recommendations. The one we've chosen is something that we're already doing, which is expanding and improving walking, cycling and integrated transit initiatives. And the stretch target is identifying potential areas for zero carbon zones. And I just thought, one of the things that we've got that no other city has got is an area 4 times the size of Hagley Park, where we are developing a co-governance model that could actually take on this challenge quite significantly and quite dramatically, because it's at the front end of a process, and that's the Otakaro-Avon River corridor. So I think we need to be seriously thinking outside the square in a literal sense and think about what those opportunities are. In terms of the second item that we were asked to look at here, I attended the Aotearoa Sustainable Development Goals Summit hosted by Canterbury University, Lincoln University, and supported by Council and ARA. And I said at that conference, and it was by Zoom, that I would bring this declaration to Council for formal sign-off. And we've already heard from Bridget, and I think she's probably put it better than anyone else could. But I just wanted to quote from the declaration: "No single organisation can achieve the SDGs on their own. Change requires us to work boldly within and across sectors, and we are committing to work collaboratively where possible and appropriate." And as Bridget said, it speaks an international language, and it's all about collaboration. So I'm happy to move with an appropriate amendment to the list of recommendations.
Okay, thanks for that. Do I have a seconder before we go to questions? Mike. Thank you very much. Okay, do we have questions for staff at this point? Jimmy and then Yanni.
Regarding to the 9.2, particular risk management implication. I mean, if we to join this city race to zero climate initiative, and also we sign Aotearoa, SDG, the declaration, except the staff need more additional time. You know, which else are the resources as a council we need to, to be the, to prepare, to meet more, can meet all those commitment.
Thanks, Jimmy.
It's my
The
question.
resourcing.
So we've chosen a action that the council is already working on to obviously advance, cycling and walking in the city, and we're very active in that area. We're also doing transport planning for Christchurch, and that's underway at the moment. So the action that's proposed here is wrapped into that. We're not looking to secure any more resources for this, and this report specifically says that we're not asking for further funding. It says we're going to deliver this within the existing LTP allocation.
And the reporting requirements on this can be done through our normal reporting efforts, and so there's no sort of additional separate requirement to report separately through the channels that we already do.
Second question is because based on the widget presentation, particularly regarding to the SDG, they have 17, and those the goals. So every goal, except the 17, every goal is a bigger issue. We have to work in closely with the partnership, particularly highlight those 17 working together partnership. Who is our council's partnership? We can achieve this goal.
Right. So, I mean, obviously the City Council is working with many organisations in Christchurch to deliver on a range of those different goals. It would be very hard for me to list all of those today. But the key point, I suppose, is we are already taking a sort of a health and well-being approach to all our policies. And we've got a guide, for example, here, this integrated planning guide that uses the Sustainable Development Goals as a basis for our decision-making. It's sort of a prompt for when we're doing planning, we can engage. This was used for example, the recovery plan for Christchurch Central area and also in the Kaikoura recovery plan when we were part of that process. So we are already using the SDGs in various ways to help inform our planning and our policies. And of course, working across the city is a vital part of achieving those goals. And so, for example, the climate change, climate resilience strategy, one of the first actions is to formalise those partnerships across the district so we can deliver the change we need to see with our partners.
Okay, thank you.
Tony, maybe it'll help if you could give us, I don't know if you know off the top of your head, a rundown of a couple of the other organisations that joined as part of the declaration as part of the summit.
Sure. So as of this week, there's 195 organisations have signed the Sustainable Development Goals Declaration. So some of those are, of course, the Canterbury University and Lincoln University, ARA as well, and Student Volunteer Army, BOMA, and Enable, which is the Christchurch Holdings Limited company. So there are a number of local organisations. Christchurch City would be the first council, though, to join. And there is a possibility for us to invite other councils, like Auckland has done with the Race to Zero. We could actually invite other councils to invite them to take part in this declaration as well.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Yanni.
Thank you. Will this apply to our entities and our CCOs? Like, what impact will this have on CCHL and Christchurch NZ if we sign up to these agreements?
So my understanding is that this is a city council signing, declaration, and so that they would have to decide on their own whether they would sign that or not.
But
So this would encourage them, of course, to do that.
Aren't they part of us? Like, it does seem a bit.
I think you might have heard, Yanni, that Christchurch NZ already have a Sustainable Development Goals framework, and some of the subsidiaries from CCHL do as well.
But if you look at some of the targets around, growing population, growing GDP, it's kind of a little bit contrary to maybe some of the things that are being put forward.
So they're independent organisations that they can make their own choices. I just will want to refer to the comment about this is a government relationship. Most of the people who are taking SDGs on seriously in this country are actually businesses. So throughout New Zealand, businesses are leading the charge on using the SDGs as their framework for understanding sustainability. So I would imagine that most of our trading companies probably are already using it or considering using it.
Right. And did we consider like the Greater Christchurch Partnership actually signing up? So we've got a bit more of a regional focus, given that like land use planning and the whole spatial planning is being done in that regard.
Well, that could be a recommendation from this committee.
Yeah. Would you like to put that forward, Yanni?
For the Sustainable Development Goals, I think that absolutely should be at the heart of what they're doing.
Okay, so there's two things as part of these. If there's no more questions, there's been some indications of some potential changes to the wording. So, Aaron, did you have a question or a proposal? Yep.
No, just a couple of questions. So you said before, Tony, that we're not going to commit any more resources and we're already doing the stuff. So what's the point in signing it if we're already doing it?
So the reason we can sign it is because we have met those commitments. As the Mayor said at the start, we've got a range of things like our climate change goals and objectives, which feed directly into this commitment. If we hadn't already made a target of having being carbon neutral by 2045, we wouldn't be able to sign this declaration. So because we have made those commitments, we're able to sign this declaration and show other countries and certainly other governments around the world and other communities that we are committed to making change on climate change.
And there also will be a wider suite of transport planning as part of this. And so the future potential sort of zero emission zones, low emission zones, that type of thing will be something that will be developed over the next few years as part of the wider transport considerations for what we need to do towards meeting our targets in Christchurch.
So that leads me to my next question, if I may, is around those zero emission zones or zero carbon zones, because this is the first I kind of really knew of them. What do they look like, and are there unintended consequences of doing those, like on low-income communities, on businesses, shifting the problem where we actually increase carbon because people now go further to go somewhere else? Have we looked at that?
Yeah, those are all the types of things we'd be looking at as part of deciding whether they would be actually useful in Christchurch and what the consequences and the costs and benefits of the various alterations are. There's over 300 cities in the EU that do have low emission zones already, so it's not something that's like a totally new idea. And there's a whole range of things in terms of low emissions or zero emission zones. It may be something like the Mayor was sort of saying in the residential red zone in terms of keeping that car free or fossil fuel vehicle free, or even getting electric lawnmowers type that, right up to saying from Auckland, for example, looking at a zero emission zone. I believe it's from 2030. That's right down Queen Street and some of those surrounding central city things. And that will be looking at excluding fossil fuel vehicles after 2030. Or some cities in Europe, for example, are like you do your deliveries between 6 and 8 a.m. And then after that, it's a zero emission zone during the day. So it's a pedestrian area such as like down Cashel Mall and that sort of thing. So there's a whole range, and that would be what would be looked at as part of that.
Yeah, because I did look at the comparison they made in the paper.
But Aaron, just making sure this is a question, not debate.
Yeah, I'll just frame it.
Did
you know, I looked at the...
No, Aaron, do you have a question for staff ahead of the debate?
I learned that one from Phil. So then finally, in 5.1 in our paper, it's the 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like the fifth bullet point. It says, invite political leaders. I think that was the one that Yanni was referring to, CEOs, trade unions, investors, and so everyone else to join. And then help us deliver on science-based action to overcome it. What does the science-based action look like? That's the most exciting part.
So the targets that the city has set are what we call science-based targets. They've been in response to the IPCC's latest advice on climate change, and also, of course, the consultation we ran with our community about what they would like to see for Christchurch. So that's an example of a science-based approach where we commit to a target that is matched by the science. We have to follow through with the actions, of course, and we're starting to implement the climate resilience strategy at the moment, but we've already underway on a whole range of actions. The city is showing leadership in many different areas, including waste and energy and transport, So that all those examples are a part of the package, which will help us get to that science-based target.
So hang on. So that's science to measure it or science to solve it?
Both, probably. The science to measure it is based on the science of what we need to do to keep it to 1.5 degrees by 2030 and by mid-2040s. And then there's obviously technical solutions all the way along to help bring about that low emission transport, for example, or more energy efficient homes. It's interesting to note as well, there's 730 schools and universities have already signed up to the Race to Zero, so there's a lot of research sort of capabilities, and also 220 financial institutions have signed up as well. So it's not just sort of environmental organisations that are pushing this. Big financial institutions are really recognising the threats here. Universities and cities and 4,400 companies are behind this as well. So it is a wide spectrum of people that are looking at it.
So just my final question then is, when will we as a council see the first science-based solution in front of us, not measuring, but an actual, here's a solution, this will drop carbon by this much?
Well, I think all the actions we are taking will be reducing the emissions, and we are measuring, of course, the emissions for the city and, of course, the organisation as well. So that's the cumulative effect of a whole range of policies from this council, but also national policies as well. So it's very hard to identify a specific intervention and the carbon associated with it, but we have done some modelling that will help us at that level, the level you're describing. Here's the intervention and here's the emission reduction. That is modelling we've done, and we're going to improve that in time as well. And in fact, you'll see soon from a transport point of view, looking at the transport choices we can make for the city and the emission reductions we can expect to see from those different choices.
Aaron, I was going to say, rather than going into technical detail now, would you like to have an offline conversation with staff around the technical detail, or a briefing at some point? Because there's lots of research on climate change stuff and science-based stuff, and if you'd like some additional information, we can organise that. Would you like some additional information on that?
Only if it's public.
That's fine. We can organise.
Yep.
It's the public we need to get on board.
Yeah. Well, it'll be links to publicly available research. Yeah. Right, can I just, I've got a wee note here. Can you remind members to use their microphone? I guess there's, with the live streaming and with Sam online, make sure that people are doing that. So that'd be good. Right. Are there any further questions?
I added another recommendation.
Yeah, so we need to get to the wording now. So there was some around the race to zero. Oh, I see it down the bottom.
Yeah, I've added another one that says that the Mayor will invite the other members of the Greater Christchurch Partnership to sign the Aotearoa New Zealand Sustainable Development Goals Summit Declaration.
Great.
And the other notes that there are many aspects of the Race to Zero commitments that Council is currently delivering on or working towards, and requests an update on implementation of the Healthy Food Action Plan, especially as it relates to new council facilities.
And we might just do all council facilities, because there was the other discussion around what happens here as well.
Do you want just new or?
We'll just get an update on the Healthy Food Action Plan.
All right,
so just take the last.
Take out.
Just after the comma.
I don't want it ignored though.
No, I think we do need to make sure that gets checked.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, so we've got a mover and seconder for those. Excellent, thank you very much. Does anyone want the two declarations put separately? Oh. Yeah. Hang on, we were keeping the other one in though, the invitation. Yeah, that's it. Great. Okay, so what I will do is I will put 1 to 5, which is the council's race to zero, after the debate clearly, and well, it's only a noting provision. It references it, but it's only noting.
Yeah, but aren't you wanting to deal with the two different declarations together?
Yeah.
So might as well bundle the
Okay,
one that relates
that's fine.
to.
I'll do 1 to 5 and 9, and then the.
Well, if people are against the race to zero, then it wouldn't make sense for them to endorse the mayor asking us to sign it.
And in fact, the Healthy Food Action Plan was to do with race to zero as well. So maybe 9 and 10 when we do that. Sorry. Well, that was part of that discussion. Right. So do we have any debate? Or Tim?
I'm actually going to. I know I'm going to abstain. I just think, although I've read the paper, I just think it's the right thing to
There's
do.
been lots of discussion,
Yes,
but you must,
absolutely.
yeah, that's great. Thank you. Pauline?
Yep. I think this is really, really exciting. I think every little thing that we can do to announce our energy behind this and behind our climate change initiatives, and to actually take a leadership role, which we know local councils have to do. We have to lead and encourage people to follow by our example. And the things that we're already doing, I mean, for instance, the St Albans Community Centre that's just newly opened this year, that sequesters carbon. It's a beautiful building. Our sustainable food systems, we support the Vegan Society with their plant-based food and products, and their, which encapsulates incredible innovation. I think that's a really important thing to think about with these plant-based initiatives. So we do support that through our funding. We have a joint waste committee that supports food waste reduction. We launched someone launched an electric rubbish truck a couple of years ago. We have a zero waste mentality with our closed landfills. We capture gas. Cape Valley landfill is an engineered sanitary facility. These are all things that are in here that we're already doing. And we support community gardens, which is a fantastic thing, recently appointing and funding a Christchurch Community Gardens coordinator. And in our land drainage and stormwater projects, we design these and deliver these with sustainability and climate change targets at the core. And I'd just like to say that I absolutely love the Mayor's idea of the Otakaro River Corridor being a zero emission zone. I think that's a brilliant initiative, and it's something that we could actually achieve. So, yeah, I'll be supporting this today, all of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further debate? Andrew?
Thank you. I'll draw people's attention to paragraph 1.4 in the report. The wording there, the intention is to rally leadership and support from businesses, cities, regions and investors for a healthy, resilient, zero carbon transition that prevents future threats, creates decent jobs and unlocks inclusive, sustainable growth. It's very difficult to argue with that as a set of outcomes that we would want in Christchurch, and I see no reason why we wouldn't, for that reason, support these resolutions. But it's important that this is a catalyst for actual measurable action. When we signed the climate and ecological emergency, I talked at that time about making sure that that led to action rather than just talk, and signing this declaration is exactly the same. So I'm happy with these recommendations as long as our commitment does lead to action. And in fact, in some cases, as we've already heard, we already are doing that. There's a lot here that's well aligned with work that we're already doing. And in fact, the action that we've chosen is one that we're already working on. The idea of having a low emission zone, or even better, a zero emission zone, is absolutely a conversation that we should be having. And if this is a vehicle, pardon the pun, to start that conversation, then I welcome it. And it sounds as though that conversation's already started as a result of this meeting. So this has already been a helpful discussion. So I don't see any reason why we wouldn't do this. In fact, I can see every reason why we should, and I'll be very happy to support these recommendations today.
Good, thanks, Andrew. Further debate, Jimmy.
Thank you. Yeah, but actually, these are two issues. One is, to join the city's race to zero climate initiative. So to me, this one is more confidence, because why council, we already, have declared this city is the kind of the ecological and the climate, the emergence, the city, and also we have, adopt our climate resilient strategy. And also our goal is consistent with this goal. This goal, we reviewed 5.1 is just reach net zero in the 2040s, or by the mid the century of this 22nd century. Actually, is consistent with our goal. So at the moment we are already, to undertake this one, still in the process. So to me, it's good. But second one, I think is because signed the Aotearoa, the SDG, the declaration, particular sustainable development goals, because we can see they have 17 wide range of goals. But if we review 12, the council and choose to sign the declaration can determine their own involvement and support the SDG Alliance. So also flexibility, how we could report on our progress likely be covered by our current report on community outcome. Yeah, if this is flexible, I would like to agree. If not flexible, if we commitment, we have to fulfill our duty to implement or working together with our partnership, to achieve this 17 goal. Probably it's a big, huge challenge for us. It's not only for the staff, additional time can do it. Possibly, and also we need to review all those the SDG, whether current the strategy or policies, is ready in there, and also whether we have action plan or action program in there ready can achieve the goal. But if the 5.12 is true, then I would like to support this one. It's only my concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further debate? Yanni.
It's true.
Thank you. I really want to separate this out into two parts, which is the race to zero and then the sustainability goals. I strongly support the sustainability goals. And what's really interesting is on the preface to our multicultural strategy, we have a Māori proverb, araha ki te whenua, te tuapapa o te manaaki, kia atawhai kia te iwi, which means love and respect to the land, which is the foundation of hospitality and care for the people. And I think that's really important when we reflect on the way in which funding has been allocated to economic development. We've set very clear targets about growing GDP and growing population, but the reality is that has a cost. That has a cost on our environment, and it has the opportunity to create huge inequity in our city. So when we use rates to fund, very expensive inner city apartments, and yet we don't put rates into our social housing, then, I think we do need to think about how we're meeting these sustainable development goals. So I hope that this actually sends a strong signal to us as a city and hopefully to our companies that that economic development at the expense of inequity and environmental and social implications is not acceptable, and we are going to think differently about how we prioritise. In regards to the race to the zero, my concern is that basically what we've heard is that this signing up to this actually doesn't change what we're doing. It just means we keep doing what we've always been doing. It's not any extra resource. But more importantly, I think what's a huge gap is it doesn't apply to our council companies. And when you think about like the Terrace Airport, for example, or you think about the ability for our companies to actually show the way in terms of sustainability because of the wide range of activities that they do, then to me that's a huge shortcoming. And I do find it a little bit ironic that we would be signing up as a city, and yet we still have these other processes underway that seem to be contrary to the declaration that we're making.
Thank you. Aaron.
While I kind of agree with Yanni on some points, not completely on all of them. The SDGs, I am happy to support. They make a lot of sense. Certainly SDG number 1, the reduction of poverty, and I'll just point out to Yanni that over the last couple of 100 years, with economic growth throughout the world, poverty has reduced dramatically around the planet, and is set to do so to the point where many that advise the UN say by the end of the century poverty will almost not exist. It'll be measurable, and yes, there'll be rich and poor, but poverty, like we've seen in the past, it is scheduled to be made extinct, which is a good thing. Sustainability is an interesting word because everything we do going forward as a planet must be sustainable, which is also economically sustainable. When things cost a lot more money to get a particular outcome, chances are something's wrong with its sustainability. And when you see the pictures of thousands of propeller blades from wind farms being buried in the ground, or issues with electric battery dumping going forward, we have some issues around the ways we think we're going to solve climate change. Looking for the science-based approach, I look forward to. Some of the best inventions that will solve climate change have not been invented yet. They will be coming. To hear that many educational facilities have signed up to this is good. Are they committed to it as their number one thing? I doubt it, and I think they should be. This council often goes on and pats itself on the back about how sustainable we are. I don't think we are. I think we've got a long way to go in the way we do transport, but it has to make sense. The dollars have to make sense, and that is something that often doesn't happen here. We subsidise things which will often mean that there's a problem in the model. So we have to come up with actual science-based solutions. We need to recycle a hell of a lot more. There's too much waste. When we dump glass under roads and call that that's not recycling, that's dumping glass under a road. There's many uses we could use around glass. Go back to when I was a child, the planet recycled way more and had way less waste. It's weird how we've gone backwards. That needs changing, so we could do a lot better. I think the declaration to the Race to Zero, given that it doesn't change anything we're doing to achieve the actual Race to Zero, is pointless. What a waste of time and effort. And if the Mayor wants to sign it, I have no issue with that at all. But I won't be supporting it myself because I think we could do a lot better in the race to actual zero and making the planet a better and more sustainable place. And the dollars have to make sense. And you can't go subsidising things just because it is
Aaron.
greenwashing. Okay, I knew it would be.
Melanie.
Look, I support all of this. I think it's pretty obvious. In fact, it doesn't really need any words to explain that. But I do think that any councillors that won't support the Race to Zero mean that they don't want to provide leadership. They don't want to support businesses, cities, regions, investors to have a healthy, resilient, zero carbon recovery. It means that they don't want to prevent future threats, they don't want to create decent jobs, and they don't want to unlock inclusive, sustainable growth. I find it appalling.
Anne.
Kia ora, I just want to totally agree with everything Mel's just said, but I also want to think about the young person that we had sitting here yesterday and their future and my grandchildren's future. And I think everything we can do, we need to do, and we need to do it now. So totally supportive of all that's in front of us.
Phil.
Yeah, I sort of agree with a little bit here and there. Just to give you an idea about the sustainability thing that Aaron was talking about, I went yesterday down to New Brighton where a contractor is repairing the stop bank because it's slightly damaged. It's not quite wide enough. They need to just thicken it up until that Waitaki basin actually gets built. They're just a bit worried that it might blow out. And I said, oh, yeah, what are you doing? You're doing a good job. Excellent. But instead of driving down a red zone road, which is all rough and shingle, and which is fine, the road is knackered, they're building a separate road across the red zone with fabric and shingle and all that sort of thing. I said, and that's, in my estimation, that's probably got to be about 10 grand's worth of work, which is a lot of carbon and diggers and trucks and stuff. Whereas they could drive down the road, which is there. I said, why aren't you just driving down there? We're not allowed to because there's a bird nesting in the bushes next to it, we might scare it. So we're spending 10 grand on a temporary road that's only going to be there for a week to fix something that the job's probably only about 8 grand's worth of work itself, and we're spending all this money to it doesn't make sense to me. We're burning up more carbon to save a sparrow, say, in a nest that's not even where the truck's going to drive. So we've got to think a bit cleverer, because we're just wasting money in some respects. Thank you.
Any further debate?
I'm going to reserve my right to speak at the end, so if everyone else is finished after I'm obviously later.
Okay, well, I'll speak then. So if there's no one else. Okay, so I think that both of these are a no-brainer today. And I think that one of the things is clear is that they're not designed to change necessarily what we do as an organisation. They're designed for us to show leadership and to change what others do. So the Race to Zero is a global campaign to rally leadership and support from businesses, cities, regions, investors for a healthy, resilient carbon recovery that prevents future threats, creates decent jobs and unlocks inclusive, sustainable growth. It mobilises a coalition of leading net zero initiatives representing 733 cities, 31 regions, 3,067 businesses, 173 of the biggest investors, and 622 higher education institutions. These real economy actors join 120 countries in the largest ever alliance committed to achieving net carbon zero emissions by 2050 at the latest. The objective is to build momentum around the shift to a decarbonised economy ahead of COP26, where governments must strengthen their contributions to the Paris Agreement. For us to not join that, for us to not put pressure on governments to reduce emissions and strengthen their agreements, is for us to give in to climate change, for us to deny that it's really happening, and for us to deny that we play a role in that leadership. The Sustainable Development Goals Declaration is fantastic, and I'd like to thank Bridget for her deputation today. I think that it's hard to take seriously sometimes the protestations of virtue signalling and others when they come from those who vote against every action that we have had proposed to actually reduce emissions, having already voted in favour of the net neutral targets and the climate resilience strategy. Thanks. Mike.
Thank you. Look, I'll be supporting all of the recommendations in front of us. They're no-brainers. It's makes total sense to support these. Quite frankly, people that would vote against any of these, you've got to question their leadership around this for this city. We know that as a planet, there is a climate emergency, and the things that we do and the leadership we show is really important to actually make sure we address some of the issues that we currently face. I'm concerned about some of the comments, especially if we're spending $10,000 to ensure that potentially an endangered species isn't actually killed. That's actually money well spent. The amount of species that have been killed because of human activity around this planet is shocking. So we actually need to invest money to make sure that doesn't continue to happen. I heard a bit of a pot shot at our Economic Development Agency. They've actually been using an SDG framework for quite a long time, and they take a sustainable economic development approach, which is the investment in business, social and natural environment that creates prosperity for all now and into the future. So actually, you do have economic development that is sustainable if you take the right attitude, which they are doing. So it's disappointing when councillors actually trying to attack our companies. It's very clear that what we're doing is the right thing. Signing up for this, and both of these, looking at the goal that we're setting for transport, it's perfect timing with the development of our strategic transport plan, that we look at where we can do some emission-free zones or low emission zones, and the Mayor's already pointed out a very good place. I can't see why anyone would actually vote against this. It shows true leadership in this space. It actually keeps the pressure on us as a council to continue the work that we're doing. It unlocks shared resources. There is no negative in actually saying no to this. The only rationale that I could put why you would say no to any of these is actually you're a climate change denier.
Right. Leanne, would you like to wind up?
Thank you very much for the debate. I have to say that I wasn't aware that joining the Race to Zero would have become as politicised as it had until I read the letters to the editor this morning. And when I read the letters to the editor, I realised that some people had been commenting on this paper before it came to council. And I just want to say that it's really disappointing to read things in the paper when nobody's come and talked to me. Everyone could see in the paper that I'd been asked by the Mayor of Auckland to sign up to an initiative that brings another 999 cities together in order to put pressure on governments to actually improve their commitments in relation to climate change. I mean, I don't know, am I that unapproachable that people can't come and have a serious conversation with me? This is not actually about, this is not a groupthink. It's not about changing the planet without changing the planet. It's actually about recognising that government commitments are required in order to achieve what we need to achieve, because the world is at its limits. That's the reality. you know, and I don't know how much evidence people require of that, but I think it was Antonio Guterres said in relation to the latest report from the International Panel on Climate Change, Code Red for Humanity. What part of that do we not understand? That is the scientific evidence that sits in behind this. So, no, I don't think that it's denial. I think it's politicisation of something that doesn't need to be politicised. This sits alongside the second resolution on the SDGs. The two are both significant because they're symbolic. And they're symbolic of leadership. They're symbolic of the commitment that we have made as a council. And the fact that it isn't about us doing nothing, which is how it's been framed in a debate that's taken place outside my frame of reference. It's not about doing nothing. It's actually about showing how our actions can help influence others take action. Joining the 1,000 makes good sense ahead of COP26, and I hope that they're successful in achieving the 1,000. I'm really glad that Christchurch is going to be one of them.
Right, thank you very much. And with that, I will do actually probably 1 to 5 and 9, because I have a feeling that 10 might be requested. Yanni, did you want 10 separately?
Sarah, could no one see? Oh, could no one see my hand up before?
No, I couldn't see a hand. No
Yes,
one
you've had
indicated.
the hand up raised the whole time.
Yeah,
There's no,
I've just taken that down.
I'm
But
walking this way. Okay.
Someone's on Zoom. Watch it.
no, don't, well, I mean it's fine, but I mean, yeah, that's okay, I guess.
I
Well,
did
he had
ask,
single,
and
and he
you
had
could
the
have told
hand
him-
raised on there.
So
He's
I
had
was
his
just
hand
very
raised
clear.
up there.
It was very clear. With the times that I glanced over at you, your hand wasn't up, and I did ask specifically.
Oh, for God's sake.
Have 3 minutes. Have 3
Sharon,
minutes.
mate.
Have 3 minutes, Sam.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's very clear. No.
Okay, you've turned into a Dalek. Okay, with that, I will put 1 to 5 plus just 9, actually. Sorry, Simone. 1 to 5 and 9. Those in favour? Yeah, just make it a division. Okay.
Got from over here. I need a microphone. Councillor Templeton.
Aye.
Councillor McClellan.
Aye.
Councillor McDonald.
That's a no.
Yeah.
Couldn't hear it, but your mouth said no. Is that right? Yeah.
Councillor Johansson.
Staying on these 5.
Councillor Galloway.
Yes.
Councillor Coker. Councillor Chen.
Yes.
Mayor. Yes. Councillor Scandra, do you abstain? Yes. Councillor Major.
No.
Councillor Kewen.
No.
Councillor Goff.
Yes.
Councillor Davidson. Councillor Cotter.
Aye.
Councillor Chu.
Yes.
Councillor Turner.
Yes.
That's Chair 2 abstains, 3 against, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 4.
Thank you very much. Declared those ones carried. And now we'll move to 6, 7, 8 and 11. So we'll do a division on those as well. People don't want a division? No? Okay. So we'll just put these ones then. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Anyone against? Tim abstaining on that one.
Sorry,
Sam?
Instead of thumbs up.
Yep, thumbs up. Excellent. And we'll put number 10, the update on the implementation of the Healthy Food Action Plan. All in favour? Aye. Any against? Thanks, Sam. Okay, thanks. Declare that one carried as well. Thank you very much, and thank you, Tony and Kerry, for that. All right, next we move to the... sorry, Sam, you're at Dalek.
He needs to go off and come back.
You probably need to go off and come back on and flick through an email or a text message.
We'll try it with the video off. Yeah.
Yeah.
See if the audio.
Do you want
comes
to try
through
again
that
now,
way.
Sam?
He's gone.
Oh, he's actually gone. Yep, that's cool. He's come back in.
Turning the video off helps heaps.
Yeah.
Just lower the bandwidth.
Well, sometimes the fiber's there, but you haven't connected, right? Okay, so we need to move to the Smoke Free 2025 Action Plan Implementation Progress